I am so tired of people saying this advice is obsolete now, because it's not. Hello friends, my name is Ian and welcome back. This week we're going to be going over the most common writing advice and one of the most popular pieces of advice to exist for writers, and that is show, don't tell. It is one of the most fundamental pieces of advice you will receive as a new writer and will be something you continue to use throughout your writing career. A lot of writers get stumped on this, even though it seems very simple. So let's dissect this piece of writing advice and get you started in the right direction to tackle this seemingly simple piece of advice. Let's get started. Showing and telling are two completely different sides of a spectrum. First, let's talk about the differences between showing and telling. Telling is when you are essentially explaining to the reader what is happening in the story and not allowing them to come to a conclusion on their own. On the other hand, showing is when you are describing something using context clues, which allows the reader to deduce what is happening for themselves. This also allows readers to feel like they are in the scene. Novelist Anton Chekhov once said, "Don't tell me the moon is shining. Show me the glint of light on broken glass." So you don't want to just tell someone that something is happening, like the moon is shining, or it's cold, or someone's hungry. Show or describe how the moon is shining off the glass, or how someone's stomach rumbles because they're hungry, or how someone had multiple layers of jackets on when it's cold outside. Another way I've recently found to describe showing and telling is to say describing and explaining. Describing for show, explaining for tell. That might be more help to you than show and tell would be. There are many different ways for you to show in your story instead of telling. I have a few ways that you can successfully show something happening, and this is not exhaustive, but this is some of the most common and easy ways for you to start showing. The first way is to use the 5 senses: sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. If it's fall and there are leaves on the ground, use the sound of the leaves crunching under the person's feet to show that it's fall. Maybe the character smelled something good. You could say the smell of the food wafted through the air. There are countless ways to use your 5 senses to show, and that's why a lot of people use it a lot of the time while they're writing. You can also show by using dialogue. Say people are angry at each other. Instead of saying that they're angry, you could say that you could have an argument happen through dialogue, and that could tell you that they are mad at each other and are upset about what might be happening. You can also use thoughts from the character to convey a plot point or something else as a form of showing. Maybe the character has to think before they make a move in their next battle. Their thoughts are there, so you explain their thoughts, so then you get to see how the character is feeling in a way that's not just saying they are scared. Use active verbs instead of is, was, and others. Active words are words like ran, or walked, or folded. So you could say someone was folding the laundry. Instead of that, you could say someone folded the laundry. This makes your story feel more active, and it allows you to show more than you would. Something that everyone uses and sometimes is used in excessiveness is body language. For example, if someone is scared, instead of saying they are scared, You could use the fact that they might start shaking. You could use the fact that they might run from where the fear comes from. Body language is probably the easiest place to start when talking about showing versus telling. You can also use the setting to your advantage. Let's use that someone is cold and shivering as an example. The world around them would be probably pretty barren, probably with some snow. Maybe there might be some snow falling. You might be able to see someone's breath. You can use the setting of somewhere to really exemplify what you're trying to show to the reader and make them feel more immersed in your story. There are, of course, exceptions to this show don't tell rule. So basically,
the code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
Some people try to make you believe that it's a hard and fast rule that you always have to follow, and that's not the case. With everything writing, rules are made to be broken. If you do it purposely, then it fits into a story. If you do it accidentally, people will be able to easily tell that you're telling. There are also some other people who think that show don't tell is obsolete and shouldn't even be considered something nowadays. And it's simply not. The way I think show don't tell should be described as is show and tell, but mostly show. Because you should show most of the time in your writing. However, there are specific times where showing is simply not the best option. It depends on the story you're telling. Say your characters are traveling from one place to another. So they're going from point A, which might be their house, to point B, which would be their workplace. If you showed all of that, you would show them getting ready, walking out their door, going to work, crossing roads, maybe talking to someone, maybe grabbing coffee before you get to the office. That would be a lot of showing multiple paragraphs, and most people would find that boring because nothing important to the story is happening on that walk. So why would you share it if it's not needed? You could just tell that they went to work, and that gets the point across. You don't need to lengthen it out more by telling some irrelevant things to the plot. If the details are unimportant and would detract from the overall story, then it's probably better that you tell that. If you are also trying to quickly explain something, then telling would be better. There are other exceptions to this. There are just so many different unique ways that I couldn't really fit a lot of them in the video. Just be aware that you should be mostly showing, but sometimes telling. Both of them are just as important, just better to really sometimes not have every single little detail in your story. So let's get into some examples. The sun was hot as Ryan ran. The sun beat down on Ryan, causing him to sweat and his skin to grow red on his daily run. It was late fall. The children played in the pile of fallen leaves. Fall usually means leaves fall off the tree. You can see children playing in the newly colored leaves. She was embarrassed. Instead of she was embarrassed, you could say Lily's face went red after she fell in front of the judges. If you fell in front of judges, you might be pretty embarrassed. When they embraced, they were happy. A small laugh escaped his wife's lips as they embraced. He couldn't help but laugh along with her. So instead of just telling the reader that they embraced and were happy, you could show that they laughed. or that they smiled at each other. The boy was scared. Mom, the boy screamed when he woke up from his nightmare. So instead of saying he was scared, you could explain that he woke up from his nightmare and cried out for his mom. So overall, you want to remember that showing versus telling is a very important piece of writing advice. Showing will make your story longer because you're sharing more details and it will slow the pace of the story down, while telling will speed up the pace but will also take away some of the details. It's a fine balance, and I think a perfect balance would be 80% showing and 20% telling. There are exceptions to this rule, and there are rules that you have to follow when doing this. But it's not all set in stone, and this is meant to be broken if you know how to break the rule. And the better way, I think, to describe this is to say show and tell, but show more. Let's get into a couple writing exercises you can do in order to improve your showing versus telling. You could write a basic sentence like "it was cold," and then you could turn that telling sentence into a phrase that shows that it was cold instead of telling that it was cold. Or you could take what you've already written, take some paragraphs you've already written, highlight the showing and highlight the telling in different colors, and deciding if the telling should be turned to showing and then turning that telling into showing. Just make sure you practice and get this down. Once you get it down, it will seem like, how did I never figure this out before? But it's a lot harder than it seems, which is why I made this for you. And that's pretty much all I have for you today. Comment below if you show and tell, how you learned this, or if I taught you something new. I hope you enjoyed and that the video was at least somewhat helpful. If it was, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, as I post videos like this every Sunday. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next week. As always, never stop writing. Bye!